Have you ever caught yourself smiling at an old love song on the radio, only to quickly look around and wonder, is it silly that I still feel this way? If you've ever had that thought, just know you're far from alone. There's this quiet myth floating around in the air that after a certain age, maybe 60 or 70, romantic feelings are supposed to just fade away, like they belong to the world of youth, and we should tuck them away with the photo albums and prom dresses. But here's the truth that doesn't get said enough. Romantic feelings don't have an expiration date. Not at 60, not at 70, not even at 90. The desire to love and be loved, to feel seen, cherished, and emotionally close is human. And you, my friend, are beautifully human. Let's pause for a second and really think about this. Maybe you spent most of your life building a family, raising kids, or showing up at work every day for decades. Maybe your heart was too busy helping others to stop and ask what you needed. And now, in this chapter, this slower, quieter, sometimes lonelier chapter, you might be wondering, do I still get to want this? Is romance even relevant for me anymore? The answer is a resounding yes. Whether you've been married for decades, lost someone dear, or are navigating single life for the first time in years, romantic feelings are not only valid, but in many ways more meaningful now than ever. Why? Because you're not chasing fireworks or fairy tales anymore. You're not trying to impress anyone with flashy moves or grand gestures. What you're looking for now is deeper. It's companionship, trust, a hand to hold on cold mornings, someone to laugh with when you forget where you put your glasses again. There's a quiet magic in that kind of connection, and it doesn't belong to the young. It belongs to the wise. But let's be honest, opening your heart again, or maybe even for the first time, can be terrifying. Especially if life has handed you your fair share of heartbreak. Maybe you've lost a spouse. Maybe the divorce still aches, even if it was decades ago. Maybe you carry wounds that make you hesitate to love again. That's okay. That hesitation is your heart's way of protecting itself. But it doesn't mean the door is closed forever. It just means you'll walk through it more gently this time. One woman I spoke to, Irene, is 72. She was married for 41 years until her husband passed. For a long time, she felt like love had ended for her the moment she said goodbye at the hospital bedside. But a few years ago, she met someone in her poetry group, a quiet, kind man who made her laugh again. It wasn't some Hollywood romance. No violin music. No dramatic first kisses. Just two people sharing tea and conversation, and slowly rebuilding a kind of joy. She told me, at this age, love feels more like sitting in a warm room after a cold walk. It's quiet comfort, and it matters. That stayed with me because so many of us think love is supposed to be fireworks, but in reality, it's warmth. It's someone noticing when you're tired, asking how you slept, watching old movies together, even when the dialogue is hard to hear. That kind of love, that kind of romance, it thrives after 60 dot. And what about physical intimacy? That's a topic people are often too shy to bring up, but let's not dance around it. Yes, our bodies change, hormones shift, energy levels dip. But intimacy doesn't disappear, it transforms. It becomes slower, more intentional, more about closeness than perfection. In fact, studies have shown that emotional intimacy and physical affection in later life can greatly improve mood, memory, and even immune health. But it starts with giving yourself permission. Permission to feel desire, to crave connection. 2. Seek new companionship without feeling like you're doing something inappropriate for your age. You're not. You're doing something incredibly courageous, reclaiming your emotional life. Maybe you're afraid of judgment. Maybe your kids or friends don't understand why you're dating again. Maybe society whispers that it's too late. Ignore that noise. You don't owe anyone an explanation for the joy you seek. You've lived enough years to know that happiness doesn't fall into your lap. You have to reach for it, and maybe that doesn't mean jumping into dating. Maybe for you, right now, it means writing in a journal about what you want, talking to someone about the loneliness, reconnecting with parts of yourself you buried while taking care of everyone else. That, too, is romance with your own soul. And it's just as sacred. So if you've been wondering whether what you're feeling is valid, whether that tug in your heart still has a place in your life, I'm here to tell you, yes, it absolutely does. Not only valid, but vital. Because the human need to love and be loved doesn't retire when we do. If anything, it gets louder. And we finally have the time and often the wisdom to listen. Let's keep talking about this. Because the story doesn't end when the kids move out, the job wraps up, or the mirror shows a few more lines. Sometimes that's exactly when the real story begins. You know, one of the most beautiful things about love after 60 is that it no longer asks us to rush. It doesn't demand the whirlwind courtship of our 20s or the compromises of our 30s. Instead, it offers us something far more precious: presence. A kind of companionship that says, I see who you are now, not who you used to be. And honestly, that kind of love is worth waiting for. But there's something we have to talk about here. Trust. Because it's one thing to want connection, and another thing entirely to open up after life has handed you its share of pain. Trust after 60 is not just about someone else being honest. It's about you learning to feel safe in your own skin again. Safe enough to say, I want this. I deserve this. For many people, that sense of safety can feel fragile. Maybe you've gone years or decades without dating. Maybe your last relationship left scars, or your independence feels too precious now to risk it, and that makes sense. After all, you've built a life, learned to stand tall on your own. Why would you risk being vulnerable again? Here's why. Because the best kinds of connections don't ask you to give up your independence. They honor it. The right kind of relationship at this stage of life isn't about fixing each other or filling a gap. It's about walking alongside one another, both whole in your own ways, simply choosing to share a little more of life together. One man, Henry, he's 68 now, told me something that stuck. I'm not looking for someone to complete me. I'm looking for someone to share my coffee with in the mornings. That's it. Nothing flashy. Just quiet companionship and the comfort of being seen. And for some, the challenge isn't just about finding trust. It's about feeling worthy. Especially if you've gone through physical changes, health struggles, or grief. It's so easy to look at ourselves in the mirror and think we've somehow become less desirable, less lovable. But let me gently remind you of something. Aging doesn't make you less. It makes you more experienced, more intuitive, more emotionally fluent. And if your body doesn't move the way it used to, if your skin has softened and changed, that doesn't take away from your beauty. It deepens it. It adds chapters to your story. And someone out there, someone kind, patient, and open will see those chapters and want to know everyone. Sometimes we think romance after 60 has to look like something smaller, like we need to settle or expect less. But the truth is, it can be just as full, just as meaningful, if not more. Because at this stage, You're loving with your eyes wide open. You're no longer chasing perfection. You're choosing peace, kindness, realness. That is powerful. Let's not forget relationships don't always have to mean marriage or moving in together. They can look like Sunday brunches, shared walks, heartfelt letters, even companionship through long-distance phone calls. Love doesn't have to be defined by tradition. It just has to feel real to you. That, of course, not everyone wants another relationship. And that's valid too. For some, the love story after 60 is not about romantic love with another person. It's about falling back in love with yourself, reconnecting with the parts of you that got lost in the noise of work, parenting, caregiving. That kind of love can be just as transformative. Maybe that means picking up the guitar you haven't touched in 30 years, or starting a travel journal, or dancing again, even if it's just in your kitchen. These aren't just hobbies. They're ways of saying, I'm still here. I still feel deeply. I still matter. The important thing is this. You get to decide what love means for you now. You get to rewrite the story. No one else gets to set the rules. Not your friends. Not your kids. Not society. Just you. And if you're feeling unsure, if you're wondering whether it's too late or too awkward to try, here's a little truth. I want you to keep close. You're allowed to want joy. You're allowed to want connection. You're allowed to want romance and butterflies and soft hands holding yours during a movie. That doesn't make you foolish. It makes you alive. In fact, one of the most vibrant, inspiring people I know met her partner at 75. They met at a community painting class. She told me, I didn't think anyone would flirt with me again. Then he offered to wash my paintbrushes. Now we share a garden. She laughed as she said it, and then she paused. It feels like falling in love at just the right time, not too late, not too early. Just right. So whether you're in love, out of love, healing, hoping, or simply learning to be your own best companion, remember, this chapter isn't an ending. It's a beginning you actually get to write for yourself. You know, sometimes what keeps people from opening their hearts again isn't fear of love. It's fear of change. Fear that stepping into a new relationship means giving up the life you've grown so comfortable with. And that's fair. After all, by now, many of us have carved out a rhythm. A certain chair we like to read in. A certain way we make our tea. A quiet we've come to treasure. But here's the thing about love after 60. It doesn't have to disrupt your peace. The right kind of relationship fits gently into your life, like a soft breeze through an open window, not a storm that tears everything apart. You don't have to compromise your routines or your solitude. You just have to stay open enough to let joy visit you. That joy might not always come in the form of romance either. For some, it's rekindled friendships. For others, deep companionship with someone who simply gets you. Sometimes love after 60 is just having someone who listens without trying to fix you, who laughs at your jokes because they truly think you're funny, who holds space for your grief and your stories without making you feel like you talk too much about the past. And let's talk about intimacy, because this is something people often shy away from. But let's not. Intimacy after 60 is not only possible, it's meaningful in ways that youth often overlooks. It's no longer about trying to impress. It's about comfort, presence, trust, a hand on your back while you fall asleep, a kiss on the forehead that says, I see you. Yes, our bodies change. Our stamina might be different, but the desire to connect doesn't just evaporate with age. In fact, many people find that physical closeness becomes more tender, more thoughtful, more emotionally rich. And isn't that the kind of intimacy we all longed for in our younger years? What's also beautiful is that people in this stage of life often find themselves becoming more emotionally intelligent. You're not looking to win an argument, you're looking to understand. You're not trying to change someone, you're learning to accept. That shift creates space for a relationship built on calmness instead of chaos, shared meaning instead of drama. Of course, the world around us doesn't always reflect this reality. Movies and media often paint love as something reserved for the young. But real life? It's full of late-blooming love stories. Neighbors who become soulmates. Childhood friends who reconnect. Strangers who meet at a farmer's market, both reaching for the same bunch of tulips. Love still happens quietly, unexpectedly, honestly. And if you're thinking, but I've missed my chance, let me stop you right there. You haven't. As long as your heart still beats, your story is still unfolding. You don't have to be in your 30s to feel butterflies. You don't have to be newlywed to walk hand in hand. You don't have to be young to be cherished. One of the most liberating things about being over 60 is that you've survived so much. You've learned so much. You've let go of who you are supposed to be, and now you get to become who you actually are. That's the perfect time to love. That's when you're ready to do it not for validation, but for connection. Not to fill a gap, but to deepen the richness of your days. So maybe today, you'll pick up the phone and call someone you've been thinking about. Maybe you'll say yes to that community event you almost skipped. Maybe you'll sit across from someone new, sip your coffee slowly, and simply let yourself be seen. And maybe, just maybe, you'll surprise yourself. You'll realize that your heart hasn't grown too old for romance. It's just been waiting for the kind of love that finally makes sense. If no one's told you this in a while, let me be the one to say it. You are not too old for love. You are not invisible. You are not past your prime. You are a whole, radiant human being with so much to give and receive. Whether that love shows up in the form of a partner, a friend, or a renewed sense of self, you deserve every bit of it. You've spent decades giving your energy to work, to raising children, to managing responsibilities. Now this part of your life, it's for you, for your happiness, for your heart. So go ahead. Be bold enough to feel again. Be brave enough to hope again. Be curious enough to connect again. Because love isn't something you outgrow. It's something that grows with you. And you, my friend, are still blooming. Sometimes all it takes is one quiet moment to realize we're not done yet. Not done feeling. Not done connecting. Not done being moved by a look, a gesture, a voice that feels like home. There's a myth out there, one that says romance is a chapter that ends with youth. That passion fades when the wrinkles arrive. That love belongs to the young, while the rest of us are expected to live quietly in its memory. But what if that myth was never ours to believe? What if, after 60, love finally becomes what it was always? Meant to be, not rushed, not performative, not for show, but real, deep, steady, a sanctuary instead of a performance. See? The beauty of being where you are now is that you know what matters. You don't need grand gestures or constant reassurance. You crave something simpler, but more profound. A love that listens, that respects, that shows up, not just when it's easy, but when it counts. And if you're someone who's already found that, celebrate it, cherish it, speak it aloud more often. Because love in this season of life is a quiet revolution, a reminder that the heart doesn't retire just because the calendar says so. But if you're someone still hoping, still wondering if it could happen again, or even for the first time, please know it can. It absolutely can. Your past relationships, no matter how joyful or painful, do not define your future capacity for love. You are not broken. You are not too late. You are not too set in your ways to open up again. If anything, you are more prepared, now than ever before, to give and receive the kind of love that actually nourishes your soul. Let this be the time where you stop asking, "Am I too old for this?" and start asking, "What do I want now?" Maybe you want to write letters again. Maybe you want to slow dance in the kitchen. Maybe you want to take someone's hand on a park bench and sit there in comfortable silence. Maybe you want to feel desired, seen, or simply heard. These are not selfish desires. They are human ones. They're not silly or dramatic or embarrassing. They are sacred. And here's a truth I hope you carry with you. Romance after 60 isn't a consolation prize. It's not good for your age. It is real, vital, and deeply valid. You've earned the right to love without apology, to feel again, to hope again, to dream again, even if those dreams look different now. In fact, some of the most powerful love stories begin later in life, because by then, we've shed the illusions. We know ourselves better. We love with more compassion, less ego. We're not trying to fix or be fixed. We're simply showing up as we are. So, whether you're single, remarried, widowed, dating again, or just opening your heart for the first time in years, know this: you're not behind. You're right on time. Right on time to rediscover yourself. Right on time to connect more deeply with someone you trust. Right on time to embrace the romance that still flickers quietly inside you, even when the world tells you it shouldn't. And if you've ever looked in the mirror and thought, "Maybe my best days are behind me," let me tell you, they don't have to be. Because sometimes the best days begin when we finally stop rushing, stop pretending, and start loving with intention, with grace, and without fear of what others might think. If this message speaks to your heart today, let it move you. Let it spark a conversation with a friend, with a partner, or even with yourself. Reflect on what love means to you now, what it looks like, what it feels like, and what you're ready to welcome in this beautiful chapter of your life. And if you've made it this far in the video, thank you. You've honored your own heart just by showing up and listening. That in itself is love. If you'd like to, share your own story, your thoughts, your questions, or even just a simple hello. Drop a comment below. I read them, and they mean more than you know. Don't forget to like this video if it resonated with you, and subscribe for more heart-centered conversations about life, love, and everything in between, because your story still matters, and we're here to walk it with you. Here's to living your best life with your whole heart open. No matter your age, love is still valid, and so are you.